What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 squad? Welcome back into another video, and this will be my first mock draft of the 2020 NFL draft. Guys, I'm excited about this one. I know I usually come out with mock drafts early on in the off season around January every year. I come out with my first one in January. This one's going to be the pre-combine edition. Yes, this is going to come out during the combine, but just stick with me here. This is the pre-combine mock draft. Let's get right into it. First, I'm going to throw out the layout. Boom, that is all of the picks. You guys can take a look at it here, or you guys can take a look at it in the description below. So make sure you guys follow along as I explain every single pick. That being said, let's start off with number one. Number one overall, we're going to talk about Joe Burrow, the quarterback out of LSU. Listen, this is the hands-down unanimous number one pick. There's no explaining to talk about, right? Joe Burrow is going number one to the Cincinnati Bengals, and he also said that he would play for Cincinnati as well. We then move on to the second overall pick. That is Washington, the Washington Redskins. They're going to go after Chaisson, the edge rusher out of Ohio State. Listen, Chaisson is a fantastic prospect, don't get me wrong, but can Washington pull off an upset as far as drafts go and pick a quarterback here and get rid of Dwayne Haskins? I don't know. People are talking about that. I don't believe it, but I'm just throwing that out there and seeing if it sticks. But that being said, Chaisson should be another unanimous decision at number two. We then move on to the Detroit Lions with a third overall pick. This is where the draft begins, right? They can go in different directions here. People are talking about them possibly getting a quarterback here. That's crazy. And this is possibly where teams are going to want to trade to. They're going to want to trade to 3. They're going to want to trade to 4. So this is basically where the draft begins. So the Detroit Lions, I have them. This is a non-trade addition. So I'm going to have the Detroit Lions taking Jeffrey Okudah, the cornerback out of Ohio State. One of the best corners to come out in a very long time. Definitely deserves to be taken number 3 overall. Ohio State produces some really good cornerbacks besides Eli Apple, but we're not going to get into that. We then move on to the number 4 overall pick, and the New York Giants are on the clock. My favorite team. They're going to take Isaiah Simmons, the outside linebacker out of Clemson. Listen, the fluidity, the versatility that the Giants really want to transform this team into, getting Patrick Graham at the defensive coordinator position that runs that hybrid scheme. It figures to me that Joe Judge wants a lot of hybrid players, and Isaiah Simmons, if you can describe him in one word, it's hybrid, versatile as well. So that being said, we then move on to the number 5 overall pick. We've got the Miami Dolphins on the clock. I have them taking Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback out of Alabama. His medical reports have come clean, and he looks like he's good to go for the draft, so his draft stock should not be affected as much. We then move on to the number 6 overall pick. The Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock, and I have them taking Justin Herbert here, the quarterback out of Oregon. But listen, the Chargers need another plan at quarterback. I don't think Justin Herbert is ready to start this year. I don't think he's ready to start later on in the year like Daniel Jones, who was also a 6th overall pick. Justin Herbert needs somebody to learn from. Derrick is really one of the guys I really want for the Chargers if he leaves Oakland, and help Justin Herbert become a more conservative and not much as a gunslinger quarterback. A quarterback that really is very efficient like Derek Carr is. I think Justin Herbert's best situation is, but I don't think he's ready to start just yet. I know drafting him this high kind of means he's going to start at some point, maybe later on in the season, but I don't think he's ready for it yet, but I think he has a lot of potential. We then move on to the Carolina Panthers at number 7. I had them taking Derrick Brown. A lot of people do as well. Listen, I think it's the pick that makes the most sense. One of the best defensive players in this year's draft. We then move on to the Arizona Cardinals at number 8. I have them taking Jeudy, the wide receiver. Yes, I know they drafted a couple of wide receivers last year. Andy Isabella. I can't remember the other guy's name. And then they have Christian Kirk still there. A couple of guys. They have a pretty decent wide receiver core. Nothing that really jumps out to you. And when you have Kyler Murray there, as good as he is, you could go off at the tackle here to shore up that right side of the line. You can go like Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, guys that have played right tackle in the past. So you can go in directions like that, but you can also take the Seattle Seahawks route and say, listen, this guy is mobile enough to move around without star talent at the offensive line positions. you can just go out there and get him playmakers to throw to when he gets outside the pocket if he decides to throw the ball. Jerry Jeudy is one of the best, if not the best route runner I've ever seen in coming out in a draft, and on top of that is an extremely good deep threat, catches those 50-50 balls, can be a huge asset to Kyler Murray. Moving on to the number 9th overall pick, we're going to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to have them taking Javon Kinclaw, the defensive interior lineman out of South Carolina. This guy is an absolute monster. This guy is one of the most aggressive interior guys I've ever seen, one of the best pass rushers from the interior I've ever seen. You go back to the days of Sheldon Rankins as well, very comparable to him, how disruptive he is in that pocket, how he could break down a pocket so damn quickly. He's a bit raw as well, very raw, but imagine if you can get him to learn technique, if you can get Javon Kinclaw to learn technique, he can be the best defensive player in this draft. That being said, we do move on to the Cleveland Browns. I had them taking none other than an offensive tackle. This number 10 pick cannot be anything other than a tackle in this draft. You can go in many different directions. They might all still be on the clock, be there at this point, maybe minus about 1 or 2. So you're going to have a decent option at offensive tackle. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you need to go after offensive tackle here. And I'm going to have them taking the best tackle, in my opinion, in this draft, and that is Andrew Thomas, a top-notch pass protector. We then move on to the number 11 pick, and again, I'm going to have the Jets taking a tackle here. This one's going to be Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. We then move on to the Las Vegas Raiders at number 12. I'm going to have them taking CeeDee Lamb, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma. CeeDee Lamb may be the best wide receiver to come out in this draft. I like Jerry Jeudy. CeeDee Lamb just knows how to take over a game. He demands targets, demands receptions. Oakland can have a extremely good playmaker there. You can tell what they wanted to do with Antonio Brown. CeeDee Lamb can be a huge asset to that offense. We then move on to the 13th overall pick. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and I have them taking AJ Epenesa. Their defense has been getting surely better every single year, and this adds a huge upgrade to them as far as the pass rush goes. We then move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 14, another team that has been really thriving as far as defense as of late. They've had one of the worst defenses a couple years ago. Now their defense is getting a lot better. They were number 1 in stuffing the run this year. So this year, I guess they're going to want to focus more on the pass rush as well. Yeah, Shaquille Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, they were extremely successful. Both are upcoming free agents. You got to at least sign one of them and then add Kalavin Chaisson. I don't know how to say his name, but I got them drafting him out of LSU. This guy's an absolute animal as well. Another raw talent, but can still get the job done. We then move on to the number 15th overall pick, the Denver Broncos. Number 15, I have the Denver Broncos taking Kristian Fulton, the cornerback out of LSU. They definitely need a lot of help. Chris Harris is an upcoming free agent. You got rid of Aqib Talib. You got rid of Bradley Roby a couple years ago. And your cornerback core is not looking good. They did not play well last year. So you need another cornerback. And Fulton should be there for you at 15. Number 16, Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons are going to take Yetur Gross-Matos, the edge rusher out of Penn State. He's another athletic kind of monster. They love that in Atlanta. Atlanta just loves anybody fast at any position. You look at every position along the board as far as Atlanta goes. They just love fast players. Gross-Matos should be a good prospect for them. We then move on to the Dallas Cowboys at 17. I have them taking Grant Delpit, the safety out of LSU. They need some more defensive help, as they really didn't perform as well as people thought they would last year as far as the defensive side of the football. We then move on to the Miami Dolphins at 18, and I'm going to have them taking Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle out of Iowa. Listen, they need a tackle. I know Tristan Wirfs played right tackle, but try to fit him at left tackle to try to replace Laramie Tunsil. But they need an offensive line if they wish to get a quarterback in here in this draft or in free agency or whatever. Listen, they have to build the right way. They started to get some wins later on in the season. And, getting an offensive tackle here is just another stepping stone. We then move on to the Las Vegas Raiders at 19. They get their pick from Chicago. And I'm going to have them taking Jordan Love, the cornerback out of Utah State. I really like Jordan Love. I think he's extremely raw. But if there's any if there's any coach that has the confidence to work with project quarterbacks, it's freaking John Gruden. And I think he would love Jordan Love there in Oakland. We then move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They get their pick from the Los Angeles Rams. I had them taking Trevon Diggs, the cornerback out of Alabama. Next at 21, I had the Philadelphia Eagles going T. Higgins, the wide receiver out of Clemson. I know a lot of people say, oh, why doesn't Henry Ruggs go there? I think the Philadelphia Eagles are starting to learn more now that they need a number one wide receiver rather than just extremely fast guys. They need to have learned from guys like Nelson Aguilar, and I know they had a lot of other speedy receivers that really haven't done anything there in Philadelphia. I think they need to learn that they need to get a number one wide receiver, an actual number one wide receiver. I think T. Higgins is the right pick here out of Clemson. We then move on to the 22nd overall pick. I have the Buffalo Bills taking Henry Ruggs, the wide receiver out of Alabama. And this guy adds a huge element of speed in the combine. He may even break John Ross's record. But I have Henry Ruggs here. Josh Allen needs another playmaker on that offense. That defense is good. I don't think that defense needs a lot of work, so I think they need to focus on offense in this draft and try to build their offensive line looks a lot better. Now give Josh Allen some more weapons to throw to, and they should be okay. With Josh Allen's huge arm as well, it's a perfect complement. Henry Ruggs loves to go deep, and Josh Allen can throw the deep ball. So that being said, we then move on to the New England Patriots at 23. Listen, New England can go in a lot of different directions here. They can even get a quarterback here. A lot of people maybe are saying, if Justin Herbert were to fall, or if Jordan Love were to fall, or if Jake Fromm as well. But I think if worse comes to worse, I think they stick with Jarrett Stidham. I think they see something in him. I definitely see something in him. I'm going to have them taking Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama, as they might be dealing with the loss of Devin McCourty in the upcoming future. We then move on to the New Orleans Saints. How many times do the New Orleans Saints need to get defensive players in the first round of their drafts? They do so again this year. I have them taking Kenneth Murray, the inside linebacker out of Oklahoma. Extremely good player. Definitely, in my opinion, a little bit underrated. We then move on to the Minnesota Vikings at number 25, and they take offensive tackle that you guys probably didn't think would still be on the board at this point, but I see him dropping off of draft boards because of his raw ability, and he has a lot of potential, but he's a very raw player. A lot of people saying that he has some bust potential, but I think the Minnesota Vikings bite the bullet and they take Mekhi Becton here, the offensive tackle out of Louisville. Listen, they need offensive line help every single year. It doesn't matter who they bring in, they're always struggling. Mekhi Becton probably instantly becomes their best offensive lineman, so you can plug and play him wherever you pretty much feel like it, and call it a day there. So Minnesota goes offensive line at 25. We then move on to the 26th overall pick, and here is another Miami Dolphins draft pick, and this is going to be C.J. Henderson, the cornerback out of Florida. A lot of people love this guy. I definitely do, and Miami needs all that help they can get. They have a need at every single position you could think of on this team. We then move on to the 27th overall pick. That is the Seattle Seahawks. I have them drafting Curtis Weaver, Boise State Bronco. Go Broncos, by the way, if you guys didn't know, I'm a Boise State Bronco fan. Curtis Weaver comes off the board to Seattle as Ezekiel Ansah and Jadeveon Clowney both may be leaving, and LJ Collier, I don't even know why they drafted this guy in the first round last year, but if they want to make a smart decision here, go ahead and get Curtis Weaver, the defensive end out of Boise. We then move on to the Baltimore Ravens at 28. I have them taking Patrick Queen, the inside linebacker out of LSU. I know a lot of people aren't really taking Patrick Queen in this mock draft as far as the first round goes, but you see a lot of surprises towards the end of the first round. Guys that probably should be picked in the mid to late second round, still getting the first round, attention. So I'm going to have Patrick Queen going here. We then move on to the Tennessee Titans. I have them taking Josh Jones, the offensive tackle out of Houston. He's slowly been rising a lot of boards. A lot of people are saying he's now entering the conversation as one of the best tackles in this draft, up to going, in the top 10, in the top 15. So be on the lookout for that, but I have him going to 29 to the Tennessee Titans to replace Jack Conklin. We then move on as well to the Green Bay Packers. I have them taking Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle out of USC. I'm not too big on Austin Jackson, but I think Green Bay doesn't really have too many needs. They can probably go wide receiver. That can be a good option there, but I have them taking Austin Jackson at the tackle position. They once really had a really good offensive line, but it's not as good as it used to be. And then we move on to the San Francisco 49ers, the runner-up in this year's season in the Super Bowl. I have them taking Damon Arnett, the cornerback out of Ohio State. This is another team that doesn't really have any core needs, but I think they can get better at that cornerback position, or they can possibly go wide receiver. I mean, they have their wide receiver room is a little crowded, but I just don't think they have a pure number one guy. I know Deebo Samuel is really elevating up there, but I think they need somebody else too. I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders is going to last there too long. They can go wide receiver here, but I'm going to have them going corner here. And then last but not least, the Kansas City Chiefs at number 32. I have them taking the hybrid guy, the versatile guy, the Wisconsin guy. Wisconsin really knows how to bring out some defensive players, and I have them taking Zach Bond, the the outside linebacker out of Wisconsin. This guy can be moved over everywhere, and I think can be a really good piece for Kansas City's defense. That is my mock draft 1.0 pre-combine edition. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new. I'll see you guys in the next video. Woo!